Production funding for Another View comes from the Hampton Citizens Unity Commission, using the time, talents, and skills of a broad base of citizen volunteers to help break down racial and cultural barriers, working to achieve the City of Hampton's community plan for a healthy, diverse community. And from the African American Programming Advisory Group, community visionaries assisting WHRO to engage, enlighten, educate, and entertain all communities in Hampton Roads. And now, Another View.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee, and this is Another View. In casual conversations I've had with authors over the years, there's been a recurring theme, and that is there was something I needed to say, and I had to write about it. So do you have that burning desire to write a book? What does it take to be a great writer? And once you've written your masterpiece, how do you get it published? Here to answer our questions is Keela Boose, owner of Boose Publishing, and Nathan Richardson, author, poet, and publisher with Spiritual Concepts Publishing. Welcome to Another View. Thank you so much.
Glad to
so
be here.
how... I got to write this book.
All right.
How do I get started?
You get started. If you have not put pen to paper yet, then you get on your computer. Hopefully you're computer literate. You get on your computer and you can just start writing. Start writing in Word. And later when you get to talk to a publisher, you can translate that language
so
into
just
another.
Start writing.
Just
you
start
don't have
writing.
to have an outline, or you don't have to say,
you start writing,
this is the beginning, this is the middle. You just start writing?
You start writing, and later on you can do an outline for your book, but I would say just start writing. If you have something burning that you need to say, just let it flow out and let it be said. For years I taught writing at Northern Illinois University, and we taught creative writing, and the first way we got students to start writing was just to free write. And in free writing, they didn't feel constrained, they didn't worry about grammar, they didn't worry about things that were not essential to the story. Later you fill in with the grammar, and you fill in with other things that help move the story, but first you worry about content and getting the information
down. So
you
really want to get down that idea, the central idea first.
Yes.
Nathan, is there a difference between, I guess I would call it technical writing or textbook writing, for example, versus a novel versus fiction, nonfiction versus fiction?
Yes, it is. It's different from the editing process that you have to go through before you actually publish the book, because you want to have someone who's skilled editor to fact check your statistics and all that sort of thing. So there is quite a few more steps in the process if you're writing, say, a historical piece or a technical type of work.
Do most people who say they want to be a writer think that they really want to go more in the fictional range, or poetry, or the more creative writing, I guess?
I get all kinds of feedback. So there are a lot of people who want to write books, not necessarily fiction. There are people who want to write memoirs, or they want to write biographies about their family's histories. But additionally, I had a man come to me one time. He wanted to write a factual book about the NFL from a fan's perspective, and that's what he wrote. His name is Rob Robinson, and we edited and published that book. It's called They Always Get a Pass, Don't They? But it was a fascinating book because he's writing from a fan's perspective, but he did all the research himself, and we did have someone do the fact checking, and it was fascinating. He was on target with what his perceptions are. It was an amazing book, and still is an amazing book.
So you're an author.
Yes.
You've written several books.
Yeah.
Is that the same process you use as Keela was talking about? Did you just sit down and start writing?
Sure.
Or do you have it down now that you're a professional at it?
Actually, from my perspective, I'm a little bit of a different type writer. I'm a verbal type of writer, and I don't do a lot of journaling or writing every day. I actually memorize a lot of the things conversations that I have and images, and then I just hold on to those until I have a story, and then I do the writing process.
So that's where you find your germ of inspiration, I guess, from talking to people? And
yes, from dialogue with people. I'm from a tradition of storytelling, and so I'm always listening for those great stories that people have in their language, in their everyday lives and experiences.
Now, we know you're known for spoken word throughout Hampton Roads and regionally and nationally.
Yes.
And is that where you find your inspiration for that? And explain to our audience, for those who may not be familiar, although I can't imagine,
Right.
what spoken word is.
Well, spoken word is just the oral tradition of poetry. And there's a lot of, this is a renaissance going on right now in the poetry world, with a lot of things like on MTV with you know, the poetry thing on TV. And so what you're doing with the spoken word is just reading your poetry out loud. It does not have to be memorized, although a lot of the spoken word poets do memorize their poetry, but it's the oral tradition of passing on a story or a poem orally.
Okay, we're going to have you do something in a little while, but I want to get back to the nuts and bolts of writing this book first.
Okay.
So I've written all my stuff, and,
Yes.
and I'm writing and writing. Do I have to write so many pages per day? Do I have to write so many words? Or do I just write till I've run out of what I need to say?
All of the above. You do write until you run out of what you need to say, till the story is completed. Some people do a better job when they have a schedule and they write on a regular schedule. As Nathan said, some people store up memories and write at certain times. There are those for some of us, the muse visits every so often, and the muse doesn't necessarily visit every day. So on the days that the muse doesn't visit, then those may be the days to edit, or to change, or to just put it aside and come back to it.
That's a very good point. So I was going to say, should you look at your work every day? Or, I mean, is this something that you constantly work on, or sometimes you need to kind of step back from it?
There are times you need to step back from it. It can be overwhelming. You can be inundated, and there are things that you might need to change that you can't change, or that you can't continue, or you can't finish because you need some distance from it. And so to come back with a fresh eye after a few days really helps. But also what helps in the process, once you have a general story down, if you think earlier on you need an editor, then I would say work with an editor for drafting and redrafting purposes.
Exactly. Let's talk about this editor. How do I find one, and what qualities am I looking for? And I'll get an answer from both of you. Let's start with you, Nathan.
Well, an editor is really based on the genre that you're writing, like we were talking about before. If you have a technical book or a historical book, then you're going to need a more complicated type of editing. But you can find editors in the yellow pages. You can go online and just Google some editing. And you need to verse yourself in what the different types of edits are before you actually start talking to someone, so you know that you're getting your money's worth in finding an editor.
And what's the difference between an editor and an agent?
An agent is somebody who's going to go out and help market your book and get your book to a publisher and get your book sold to that publisher, as opposed to an editor is going to work on your manuscript, him or herself, and make it ready to get to that next step.
Can somebody do both?
Yes.
Can they market themselves
Yes.
as
Yeah,
doing
sure.
both?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And should every writer have an agent? It sounds like every writer needs an editor. But do you necessarily need an agent?
I would say most writers need an editor, and I would say every writer does. It could help to have an agent. You know, if you're self-publishing, that's one thing, and if you're marketing yourself, that's one thing. It depends on what your audience is, what your goals are for that book. Everybody doesn't have the same goal for the book. Everybody doesn't want to be on Oprah's book club. I'm talking to a person now who wants to do a prayer book, and she's working on the prayer book, but her intention is to just have it marketed at churches in a very low-key manner. She's probably never going to go on TV. You can't ever say never, but she may never do that. So her goal for that book is way different from somebody who really wants to do a bestseller, is ready to go out and do a book tour.
Sure. So everybody must have an editor, and some people need an agent.
Okay.
So like a poet that would need an agent.
Now, if you get this agent, does the agent find the publisher? I mean, where does that next step go? I've got my manuscript.
Yes.
What happens next?
You would submit your book proposal to the agent, and then he would look it over and market that to various publishers, Simon & Schuster, whoever that he has connections with.
Okay. And once that happens, what's the next step from there?
The next step is to look at a contract and get that book printed and get it distributed.
So they work with the publisher in terms of taking care. But both of you own publishing companies, so agents come to you?
Actually, individuals come to me. I have never had an agent come to me. I've always had individuals come to me, and I read the manuscript and I decide whether or not it's something that my publishing house can do or cannot do. And if we can't do it,
And what are some
then
of
we
those
pass
criteria?
it.
What are some of those? I didn't mean to cut you off, but what are
Yes.
some of those criteria that makes you decide, yes, I can handle this, or no, I can't?
If it's basically a good manuscript to begin with, if it's a very good story to begin with. then I know it's something that we can publish and we can edit. Now, again, it doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It just has to have the good bones, the good structure of a story.
Because you will take care of the rest.
I will take care of the rest. And in some cases, an editor helps not just with the grammatical piece, but with sometimes rearranging content. And a writer should be open to that. All writers are not. But a writer needs to try to listen to his or her editor to understand that they often know quite a bit about the profession as a whole and the piece as it can be. I can understand always that a writer has birthed this piece, this work, so a writer is very protective of his or her work, but it helps to listen to the editor.
Now, you've written a book. It's
called The Book of Love, a novel collection of poetry and prose.
Okay. Now, and Nathan, you've written several books.
My first production was Nathan Live at Langley, which is actually a poetry CD.
Oh, okay.
And then my first book was Likeness of Being.
Right.
And I'm working on another book now entitled You Are the Subject.
So now let me ask you guys how do you separate yourselves? Well, first of all, do both of you have agents, or do you all both self-publish?
No, I don't. I don't have an agent because I'm a poet, and normally you wouldn't be able to find an agent as a poet.
Oh, okay.
Very, very few, except for the top echelon of poets would have an agent. And normally they would probably end up with a publicist. For instance, Nika Giovanni would probably have a publicist rather than an agent.
Okay, and the difference between publicist and agent?
A publicist is a person who publicizes your work, gets you booked on shows, much like this.
Okay. Right.
So a publicist would be calling you to say, I have this great new author, she needs to come on your show.
Sure.
Gotcha.
You would love it. She'd blow it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what your publicist does.
Now, do you have an agent?
I do not have an agent, but I'm going to get an agent, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm too busy with writing my book and then working on other people's manuscripts and books to do it myself. So there was a time that I did it myself, but I'm not.
You've grown.
I've grown. So
That's awesome.
And it's important to know when it's time to move on to the next step before you bog yourself down.
And so that's one of the differences between her company and mine is that I basically do consulting. I don't publish other people's books. I teach a course called The Business of Becoming a Self-Published Author, and it basically gives you from A to Z the steps of how to become
my next
an
question.
author.
What is the difference, the self-publishing? Then talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, self-publishing, and what you're going to find is that most of the big authors have at least self-published once, and you've got a couple of different levels. You've got print on demand, which there are a lot of companies out there that will print your book, and they can actually print as many books, as few as one, and as many as 10,000 books at your demand. Once you've gone through the process and they've got your book in their computer, they can print out the book. Then you've got the complete self-published type, which what I did, and basically you're designing your own book from front to cover, and you're getting a printer to print the book for you. And actually my first book was printed by a company right here in Hampton Roads, right downtown Portsmouth.
Okay.
And the advantage of that was, although it was more costly, I had total control. I could go into the office and talk to them about that process and exactly how I wanted that book to come.
There is a number that appears on books, and I know I don't have the right acronym.
ISBN.
Yes.
The ISBN
what exactly
number.
is that? Is that something that's critical?
Yes.
To your
It's
book?
mandatory.
Okay.
If you want to get that book sold in bookstores, you have to have an ISBN number, and that number scans into the bookseller's computer and cashier box, and that's how the books are tallied through the National Registry and International Registry, and that's how you get paid.
Okay, and that's one of the ways that you also know that you're legit, that you have to go through, through that process. I know we only have a couple minutes left, and I want Nathan to give us a little spoken word over there and let us hear some of your work, and then I'll come back and I've got one final question for you. Okay.
Great. Well, this is a poem from my upcoming book, You Are the Subject. This is the title poem, and I'm writing the book for my daughter, Jade Richardson, and she's 17. She's graduating next year from Kingsford Middle, and so this is the title poem, You Are the Subject. Okay. Sentence structure is elementary, an SOL, a required standard of learning for every little girl in school. And subject-verb agreement is an imperative rule for every man who ever wishes to speak to you, lest he be an illiterate fool who doesn't know the difference between the subject of a sentence or the object. Now, this is not complex math or fractions. This is simple sentence structure followed by concrete actions, and regardless of what language he be speaking, your challenge is to let him know in no uncertain terms that, especially since you be dressed properly, that you will be properly addressed. So, when he begins this sentence with yo, your immediate response to him should be no, and then watch his big baggy pants hit the ground. Or when he tries to get your attention with baby, your comeback to him should be, maybe you don't really know that's a pronoun. And maybe not like the way this sounds, but I am the subject of this sentence, not the object.
That's
Well done.
beautiful.
Well done. I
And
like
that's
that.
so positive
Yes.
for our
Very
young
nice.
ladies. That's
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
wonderful. What advice, I know we got about 2 minutes left in the show, if for new authors, what do you tell them? What would you advise them to do to just go ahead and encourage them to keep going?
I would tell them to keep writing and to write as often as they possibly can, to make notes about very interesting events in their lives, to know that there's nothing that they have not experienced that or others have not experienced that cannot be turned into the subject of a book. Also to do as much research as they possibly can, to go online, to go to book conferences and book workshops. I, like Nathan, do a publishing seminar called Publish Your Book Now, to seek out people who do those kinds of seminars and just do as much as you can to get that information. There's a wonderful seminar coming out in September, a book festival in Baltimore that I highly urge people to go to because it's comprehensive. There's always the Festival of the Book in March here in UVA, and then there's the ODU Festival that comes in October.
And we will have your information on our website so that people can contact you if they want to.
The other thing is that they should really treat being an author like a business. And so aside from the writing part of it, you need to understand what authors do to get themselves published in print media, on radio, on television. And the only way to do that is to collaborate with other authors. Get out there and get in the mix, find out other authors. Hampton Roads is a very fertile ground for published authors, self-published authors. A lot of organizations like the Hampton Roads Writer, Word for Word Poets, so just so many different organizations that can help you and mentor. You can find a mentor to kind of team up with and show you the ropes as to where to go. Get involved in organizations. I'm involved in organizations like the Suffolk Arts League, the Young Audiences of Virginia, the Council for the Christopher Newport University Writers Festival. So when you're inside of organizations like that, then you get a first-hand knowledge of what's happening.
going on.
And if you're trying to plan a book signing or get involved in a conference and not just be on the outside looking in, then you've got to be a member of the organization in order to find out what's happening in advance.
I wish we had more time because this is just
I
so
wish you did too.
fascinating. but I've got to say goodbye. I know. Thanks so much for joining me
Thank
today
you.
on the
It was
show. I
an absolute
appreciate it.
pleasure.
Thank you. And our thanks to Keela Boose and Nathan Richardson. When we come back, some self-defense tips for your kids and a story about sight that will warm your heart. But first, a look at what's happening right here in Hampton Roads. Welcome back. School's out for the summer, making this the perfect time to practice some self-defense techniques with your children. We always hope they'll never have to use them, but martial arts expert Willie Hunter shows us a few moves they can practice to prepare themselves just in case.
What are some simple techniques that a child or a young person can use to defend themselves?
Basic things, aware of your surroundings, and two, it depends on how the situation presents itself. If you're a young lady, if I'm dealing with a young lady, there are certain things we can do, like in the first segment we did for us a choke.
Person's choking, you have a lot of pressure here. You want to grab here, hook your legs. Your legs are very powerful, your hips are. So you want to use your push up, bridge up here, and then bridge down. This hand comes here, opposite side. Here, one, I want to turn here to the opposite side, not to the same side, opposite side. I'm gonna hook my leg up really high here, bring my leg over. If you have a problem, get your leg over, you can push the head, come over, knees together, thumb up, like we're shaking hands, look back, lift your hips off the mat.
As far as boys, it may be a little different, maybe more aggressive attacks that they may experience. And what we can do is show you some of the things that we teach her at our academy. Hands up. If he's punching here, kind of knock this hand down, and I just reach, and I knee here, and I can punch here, and I can punch here. So if we go again, I come 1, 2, 3, and I can punch from here. The second one, if someone's reaching out, here, a hook punch here. This is one. I can block. My hands are up. I can strike here. I can knee. I can push away to get away from the person. A couple of different things. If I'm defending myself here, if he throws a punch, I can come here, here. And this is a takedown. And this is a mount here. And this may be a situation that someone finds themselves in. Two things. If I'm punching, he can cover here, or he can bump me here, trap. Go ahead, roll, here, bridge.
And he can switch positions here, 1, 2, from here.
Barbara, these are just a few simple techniques that you can show your child or teenager and that they can practice if they ever need to defend themselves.
Practice makes perfect on that one, that's for sure. Michael Davis has been legally blind most of his life, but thanks to a pair of special glasses, Michael is seeing clearly for the first time in 24 years. Not only is Michael determined to take on tasks he's never dreamed possible, but as Lisa Godley found out, he's made it his mission to make sure others suffering with similar eye conditions get the help they need.
A few months ago, when Michael Davis looked at something far away, it was, in his words, pretty blurry. Michael is legally blind and has been since he was about 4 months old. He has no vision in his right eye and extremely poor vision in the left. But these glasses changed Michael's life.
And these are the VitaVision glasses, and these help my vision in my left eye go from 2200 to 2040. I was reading the eye chart. The first thing I saw was the eye chart in the doctor's office, and I've never been able to read past the third E, and when I could read EHB, I was like, wow, that's something I've been able to do, and I just kept on reading, and I got down to the 2040 line, and the doctor said, wow, this is amazing, and I felt the same way.
Thanks to a specially designed mini scope built right into the lens, Michael gets a magnified view of things. The 24-year-old says he never realized just how much he was missing.
I knew that I couldn't see stars in the night sky. I knew that. But there were just so many other things that I realized after I got these glasses that I could not see before that I can see now.
When Michael's doctor first showed him the VitaVision glasses, he left the office disappointed because he knew he couldn't afford the $1,800 price tag. But thanks to the Department for the Blind, he was able to get them in May. Before that, signs like this one were just blurred shapes of color. Now, he can read them clearly. Another view caught up with Michael after a business class at Old Dominion University. We asked him to demonstrate what his new high-tech glasses can do.
With the glasses that I have on now, I know that there are words up there, which is something that is new. I wasn't able to determine that without these glasses, but I can't read the words. With the VitaVision glasses, I can read what's up there.
And what does it say?
It says College of Business and Public Administration.
Michael's mom says by improving her son's life, VitaVision has changed her life as well.
I get filled when I see something that he has actually seen for the first time. And he's just so happy for very little things that he's seen. You saw with the board today, he'd never seen a chalkboard without walking up to it and standing face level with the board. And he was, 4 rows back, and he could read with the glasses. That's amazing. That's amazing. So there's no limit to what he's going to do now.
Without the glasses, Michael had already earned his Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration from the University of Richmond. That was in 2007. He's now working toward his master's, and according to his mom, that's not all.
He said he's going to drive. I wouldn't put it past him. Everything he's ever said he's going to do, he's done.
Another task topping Michael's to-do list is to tell the world how someone who developed cataracts at 4 months old, who has had about as many eye surgeries as he is old, can now see clearly.
For those parents that have concerns or have children with disabilities, there's help out there. No matter what your disability may be, there is help out there.
Just ask Michael Davis.
It's absolutely incredible. If I used all the words in Webster's dictionary, there wouldn't be enough words to describe the emotion that I felt from being able to see that. And seeing my mom's face clearly and my grandmother's face clearly for the first time, that was pretty incredible.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Wow. If you'd like to learn more about the Bita Vision glasses or find out what other help is out there for the visually impaired, contact the Virginia Department for the Blind at www.vdbvi.org or call. The number is area code 804-371-3140. Thank you so much for joining us. Please visit our website and sign up for our eView newsletter. You can send us your thoughts about the show, or you can just write us a snail mail at 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk. I'm going on vacation next week, but Lisa Godley will be here with you. She's talking about adoption. We'll see you next time for Another View.